Good evening. It is September 23rd, 2025. I'm Glenda Carlin, and this is my weekly A Course in Miracles and Tibetan Buddhist Zoom meeting. Thank you for those that came out here tonight. Here's God Ed, God Lynn, God Liz, God Dee, God Leon, God Terry, God Glenda, and those in spirit like Julia. Let's see, who else told me? Chaz. Other things are going on that people participate in. I forget if Julia's doing a Minger Rinpoche or Adam Tutman. I'm not sure, but it's wonderful the path we're all on practicing these truths, whether they be A Course in Miracles or Tibetan Buddhism. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Because just kind of think back when our life was just work or just a regular life of not even contemplating spirit or having a life of the dogma of religion. So it's wonderful, wonderful to open our hearts, open our minds to these truths in A Course in Miracles and Tibetan Buddhism. So tonight it was kind of hard to pick a subject, a main one that I put in the email, but the main topic is it's all one pot of gold. I'm going to repeat it. It's all one pot of gold. Now there's also, I've got 6 other sub topics that may or may not come up. I'm going to read them here and then I'll get and go forward to see what comes out. The first topic is pertains to this. It's all one pot of gold. All is one because there's only the oneness of God's presence. Now, but that seems kind of odd because we got objects coming and going. But what I'm talking about is the common thread, the common glue that creates everything and animates and sustains everything. That is the pure love of God, God's presence. And that oneness means it's uninterrupted. There's no interruption between the forms and that clear light of pure love. The pure love is so pure, it shows up as emptiness, as clear light, because it's so pure. Then that makes it difficult for those on the path to recognize their true nature. They can't see clear light. But ultimately, you do see clear light. You have diamond vision, and you see through the forms to see this presence, God presence that animates and sustains everything. But anyway, that's all the one pot of gold, meaning every cell, every pore of your body, every moment. There's nothing but God presence. I'll talk more about that. But second, was I've been experiencing the full range of human emotions. Now it comes to me to say, just see how awake you are when you're online with like Geek Squad and the agents aren't able to help you with your issue, or they say they fixed your issue and it comes back. And then you try to reconnect with Geek Squad and get a second person to help you, which I'm going to cover briefly, but just see how awake you are when something like that happens. Can you be with all the emotions that show up? And I recognized I really could, but one time I recognized I'd gone off a little bit and I just came back and let thoughts, feelings, and sensations come and go. I'll cover that as well. And I was talking to my sister, one of my sisters, about it, and she decided the main thing that uh, triggered her was getting put on hold, like with a pharmacy, and the bot saying, "What can I help you with?" And you say, "I want a human," and "Oh, I can help you with that." And then the bot continues, and you go, "Oh, person, I want to talk to a person. I can help you with that." That'll tell you how enlightened or awakened you are. how you respond to that. But anyway, that was her trigger. Number 3, experiencing the 2 wings of the bird. That's the Garuda bird. Then the wings are compassion and wisdom. Due to this, that enough obscurations have been removed. Obscurations meaning judgments, thoughts and judgments of my brothers, of events, situation, have been removed to unveil this capital A awareness that is the awareness of the sonship, that sees, looks out and sees only God's presence, but yet can experience these human emotions without attraction and aversion. Because that's the very reason, what's the very reason the universes were formed or created? For me, what's come to me is this pure love, equal love, unconditional love that God has for everyone, everything, just is unconditional love, is so pure in the absolute. There's no subject and object. So the sonship could not feel what pure love felt like. It's just stark emptiness. So they decided together, we as a sonship, the one united Son of God mind, decided we'd create form, we'd create two-ness. Because to feel what equal love feels like, you got to have two-ness. You got to have a little subject and object. And one night I was in the email, I was sitting in my chair and I was contemplating two-ness. And I just kind of rubbed 2 fingers together. And that's all it took, because that's 2 cells that touch. And if you're aware, you feel there's an ecstatic aliveness, because that's pure love. When it got compressed in that great ray tube, it showed up as vibrating clear light particles of pure love. And those 2 particles, the sonship got created just like a 1-cell organism, but within the cell there's a proton and a nucleus. That's two-ness. But then the sonship decided it wanted more than 1 cell or 2 cells. So over time, it evolved into multi-celled organisms. Well, you get the trick. You just read evolution, animals, humans, etc. But it takes only 2 little protons, 2 little vibrating particles to move back and forth on each other, to feel that divine love, that ecstatic liveliness of pure love. Anyway, that's what was the next topic? Experiencing walking around within fullness as fullness, called cosmic wholeness or cosmic oneness. Yeah, I'm just walking around within fullness, meaning wholeness. There's nothing separate. What's the next one is? City of Rockledge. But from like September 15th to September 18th, I had phone conversations and several emails with the City of Rockledge, because I'm a liaison between my condo association and the City of Rockledge about a new development that's being built out our back door. We have this huge retention pond out back that I look out on, but back behind it's 4 acres of forest. And that's being developed as a 4 or 5-story, 100-unit apartment building right there. And what could go wrong with that?
Bummer.
No, see, what the great thing is, people own land and they abide by code. They can build whatever complies with code. And the wonderful thing is, I learned by being liaison, is that I forget when, but this land used to be zoned industrial and commercial. That meant there could be a manufacturing facility back there. Commercial meant it could be a restaurant or a nightclub. So picture, wow, that would be a whole nother group of issues, sound issues, etc. But an apartment building is called a like property because this is a residential building. And to give you perspective, this, I'm in one 5-story condo building, and there's a second one, and in between them is a clubhouse, single-story clubhouse with a pool. But this is built on in a residential neighborhood. And I think it was built in 1996. And just picture if you were a resident in a house, person living in a house on this street right here, and a developer came in and said, "Oh, I want to build two 5-story condo buildings." How the hell would you think about that? That gives you perspective, because it's all perspective. It's all how the mind judges. Because the mind was invented created by capital A awareness in order to process the data of these 5 senses. Thinking mind's also a 6th sense, but it's to process this data. And in processing the data, the mind looks at the past, present, and the future. Because again, back to why did the sonship invent the physical universe? To feel what pure love felt like in a form. So to feel what it feels like to be in a form, the dualistic mind can go back and go, my hands felt uh, softer 6 months ago. How can it say that? Now they're feeling this way. And see, both of those are observations. That's a judgment that the mind creates based on it looks at the past, what's going on now, and then it can even judge the future. When we were awake and alert that we were the capital A awareness that created all of this, then with pure love, that's how we didn't have judgments of good or bad. That we were just processing how this was feeling. So that's what we're going back to. Remember that we created dualism. We created this dualistic mind, which also, and a heart that could feel love or fear. We created this just to experience what it would be like to be within a body. But we were awake. There wasn't an issue. When we fell asleep and thought, the mind that capital A awareness created decided it created the world. That's what our mind thinks. It created this body, and in essence, it thinks it created the world at the unconscious level. But I digress. But anyway, I sent a bunch of emails back and forth to the city of Rockledge. And since I'm covering this, I'm going to continue on that one in a minute. And why I'm taking time to explain this is we just don't practice the Dharma or A Course in Miracles in a vacuum and go la-di-da, la-di-da. We incorporate these truths into our daily living. So they had asked me to be on the board last year, but I didn't do it. But then they kept asking, and finally I said yes. But so what's happening, I'm using Course and Buddhist truths as I live my daily life and as I communicate with that Mr. Cooper, the planning department director at the city of Rockledge, because all of it makes me a much more wise, compassionate person as I'm communicating, because I listen better. Ask better questions, get the nuances of what's going on. And what it kind of boiled down to is residents in this condo, there's 60 units in the 2 buildings, decided they wanted a fence between that property and our property mainly because this big retention pond, they didn't want people fishing in it or somebody falling in it, etc. But Mr. Cooper explained to me, code does not require a like-minded property to have a fence because it's similar property. And in that conversation, I simply just said, Oh, okay, I get it. But can't you just ask them to build the fence, to install a fence? And I just let it go. And I attended with my brother-in-law who owns and sister who's married to my sister here in the condo, owns a condo. We went to the city meeting. It was last Wednesday. And of course, we knew the development was going to be approved because we'd seen the site plans and they had incorporated different things that our condo people wanted. Like none of their stormwater was to go into our pond. They were to maintain their own stormwater on their own property, which is a big deal, and some other issues, which I won't go into. So while there, we saw Mr. Cooper, we waved to him. There were two men from the development, but I'd never talked to him before. And the item was approved, and Dan and I left the meeting chamber, and out in the lobby were standing the two men from the developer. Now, why I'm explaining this is not just for nothing, was I was paying, without really paying attention to what my mind was saying, because in my emails I'm explaining, as we awaken, we can hear more and more the guidance that can be called Holy Spirit or capital A awareness. It guides us in our daily goings on, where to go, what to do, where to stay, etc. As Dan and I walked out of the chamber into that lobby area, there were the two men. And as we were about to go past them, the thought came to introduce myself and Dan. And so I did. I stopped and said, introduced myself and said I was the liaison between the condo association and the city of Rockledge. And Dan is, my brother-in-law and lives in the condo. And they introduced themselves, gave us their cards. And in the middle, some picture, we could have walked on by. My brother-in-law told me he was going to walk on by. But I stopped, talked with him. He started talking with him. I'm not going to cover it all, but what came up pretty quick, one gentleman was the architectural designer of all the blueprints. There's 26 sheets of blueprints to pull off this development. I didn't see all of them, but I've seen some of them. The thing is, and the developer's representative were there. There were two men. Chris is his name. That's the architectural designer. He said to us, "Oh, we're installing a fence." And my brother-in-law said, I kind of shrieked. And I went, "What? You're installing a fence?" And he goes, "Yes, Mr. Cooper asked us to." Now picture my shock. I even said to him, "Oh, wait, you got to repeat this." "What?" And he says, here's the site plan. Showed me the site plan on the property line between us, our property, and theirs is the symbol for a fence, all drawn straight between us. I didn't measure it off. I was going to step it off. I don't know. It's at least 400 or 500 feet. I'm not sure the width of that property. But anyway, but I want to repeat. He said, Mr. Cooper asked us to. Now, Mr. Cooper had already told me in that phone conversation, code does not require them to have a fence. So they don't have to install a fence. It's not required. But he asked them to install a fence, and they did. And I went, "Oh, let's look at it." So I looked at, now this is my mind, not my little Glinda mind doing. It's it's thinking in the now. Can I see that? I'd like to look at the ends because I know there's an easement at the north end of this property, a utility easement owned by the city of Rockledge. And I didn't know the width, but it's 15 feet plus 25 feet covers a ditch. So that whole thing's 50 feet. So I explained to the designer, so I love it. We love it. You've installed a fence, but picture at the end of this fence, there's 15 or more feet. There's no fence. People just walk in from there onto our property. Would you consider installing a gate there? And real fast, that guy said yes. And I said, "Oh, you know, this again, I'm not hot on it. I go, I'll contact Mr. Cooper, let him know what you said and see what we need to do because the city of Rockledge owns that easement. Okay, so fast forward, that was a Wednesday night, so I forget. Thursday, I wrote an email to him. Don't you know, on Monday, yesterday, Mr. Cooper emailed me because I emailed explaining this conversation that went on in that lobby after that planning site plan was approved, development was approved, that that Chris said they would consider installing a gate, but the city of Rockledge would have to allow them to and give them permission to cross that easement. And Mr. Cooper replied he would get in contact with them about it. Now, I don't know what's going to happen because the bottom line is why I think this has been successful is that I've not really had any expectations other than I list things. I made a whole list. There were 12 or 13 items in the email. I listed of things our condo association wanted. But what's different with this mind that's happened due to less and less dual thought, less and less judging, just simple questioning, simple facts, processing data instead of knee-jerk reactions, is there's been a flow to it that I never could have done. And questions that came out of my mouth that I never would have thought to have asked. Like after that, during that conversation with Mr. Cooper, when he said it's like-minded property, they don't have to do a fence. I could have went like, oh, okay. But the thought came, and I'm used to hearing my thoughts now. I said it. Oh, you mean you just can't ask them to build the fence? Oh, but if I wasn't awake and open, that thought was be submerged, or maybe it'd go so fast I wouldn't hear it. I'm just asking y'all to take a breath, take a pause, and ask Holy Spirit many different times to help you, which I did all through these emails. This all went on. I put 2 or 3 months, but it's been 5 months. I've been the liaison between my condo people and the city of Rockledge. Oh, and so when I would get answers, I would write reports and email to the board of directors, the other board members. I'm on the board too, but I would put a post, a printout on the bulletin board of each building to keep the condo owners appraised. Therefore, they weren't dealing with gossip. Now, that's important because throughout the Dharma, Jesus doesn't call it gossip, but that's one of our main problems. We hear something and then we pass it on as the truth to somebody else. And before we know it, we've spun things into it's glue and a thought with a thought with a thought and another thought and not our thoughts, somebody else's thoughts, gossip, not the reality. And off goes the story, right? Then there's turmoil and chaos and backtracking and etc. And I can relate because during this whole process, sometimes some of these condo owners would post things on Facebook that weren't true. Mr. Cooper, when I'd be talking with him, he'd tell me, and I go, oh, I'll call him. I would call him and explain, that's not true. Would you please consider taking that down? Because what they're doing, they're agitating. They're agitating the residents in the neighborhood, the condo owners. So just picture your own life. What are we doing that's causing our own trouble in our own environment? I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to pause, but also to be aware of thoughts and be and say them, but also to say them and not be attached to the outcome, because that was something, not to be attached to the outcome. And also what I've learned is sometimes a thought or something will come out a little harder than it would come out with harsher or harder. And I would sit with that later, and before you know it, ego would be winding up about that deal. You could have done that different. Here's the deal. Everything's perfect just like it is. But if a person does feel like something went astray, because I've done that before, feel free to call up the person and say, hold it, I apologize. I said something that I feel like I shouldn't have said now. But if you hold firm, If you sitting with it and it's still coming through as the thing that's to do, then you're leaving it be. This is a whole living a life, being mindful and aware of what you're doing while you're doing it. But again, being aware when I'm having a attraction or aversion, etc., and letting go. Okay, now let's see. And then number 6, sexual male-female energy merging with pure love energy. Now this is quite a topic. I'm going to cover it. You know, during this whole awakening process that's still going on, an awakening has varying stages. Enlightenment has varying stages. Some people are just damn thrilled to have a calm mind. And if that's all they want, then they've achieved what they want, a calm mind, right? But if a person wants to have a gnosis, the knowing of their true nature, that takes you a whole lot. It takes you through some more steps. But I'm just explaining, peace of mind is something that you can't buy. So if peace of mind and calmness is wonderful. But there's other steps. But anyway, okay, so anyway, I never ever really never thought about sexual energies until this last week or so. Then because I'm walking within this fullness, this wholeness, and this last week, when I forget the date, I made some notes. I listened to that EP 63 podcast of Lama Surya Das last Thursday, 9/18. Another time, making maybe 5 or 6 times in 10 days, I might have listened to that. And that podcast is called Awareness Itself. So just picture the things you're listening to on YouTube or things you're reading. Those are the things that are you're in essence, they're in essence, what I realize is happening is you're calling in all the enlightened beings that are around that particular podcast or teaching or enlightened being. By you doing your practice wholeheartedly and authentically and genuinely, what happens, the enlightened beings, they come to you. They're always here, but they're helping you. And it's called transmissions of light and truths, where they can inject truth statements in your mind. Doesn't mean you're always aware of them, but they're trying. So it's powerful that you're reading truths, integrating the truths, listening to the YouTube videos versus, 20, let's say 10 hours, 12 hours a day, just doing Netflix or whatever. You're incorporating the Dharma. Now, why I can say this is I was listening to another podcast of Lama Surya Das, and I forget the number, it's in my notes. It was about his guru. One of his root gurus was the 16th Karmapa. And a Karmapa, long story short, prior to when the Dalai Lama started reincarnating, the Karmapa reincarnated before, 200 years before the Dalai Lama started his reincarnations. And the Dalai Lama's on his 14th one. The current Dalai Lama is the 14th one. The current Karmapa is the 17th one. So the 16th one was Lama Surya Das's, one of his root gurus. And so he did a podcast. You can see it on YouTube. And during that podcast, he is showing pictures of these different gurus in their human bodies. In front of the camera, he holds them. They're picturing, he tells a story about them. What I realized later, that is a transmission. When you're open and receptive and listen to things like that, the truths from such holy beings come through to you. And why I can say this is, I felt different about my relationship with the karmapas, and it had me remember a vision I had back in 2023. And due to that vision, I kind of thought I was awakened. But little did I know, nope. So that's why you don't draw conclusions, just keep on practicing. But anyway, what this vision was, during meditation, I saw this in my mind, is I was on a galloping horse in regular clothes, and surrounding me were, I was in the middle of two rows of, one row on each side of galloping soldiers in metal armor with metal hats on with spears. I've told this, maybe this vision once before, but I'm going to share it again. Their spears were pointed vertical up with the point up, holding their spears vertical up. And we were all these horses were all galloping across this concrete bridge, and I knew I knew that they were escorting me into this palace. There was a palace or big castles there, and as we approached across the bridge, the big door opened, and all the galloping horses went in. We got off. I looked up, and it's a high vaulted ceiling, and there's a second floor. I remember going up the stairs to the second floor, and on the second floor, sitting in the back of this big high vaulted ceiling room, was a throne, a high throne, and sitting on it, at the time I didn't know who it was, but now I recognize it was either Jesus or Buddha. And that image had two halos, one behind their head. See, that's the crown chakra open. And the other halo was all around the back of the body. That's all the chakras open. Double halo, sitting on this throne at the back of the room. And in the middle, and the person, this entity, enlightened being, is in transparent silk gown, full length gown. And on the floor throughout the room are hundreds of beings, enlightened beings, sitting on the floor chanting in transparent silk, pure silk, transparent see-through gowns with hoods. But there were no faces and no bodies. And the colors were red, yellow, orange, blue. And I don't remember walking through, but I went through these chanting people to the front of the room. And at the front of the room, there was this other being leading the chanting. He was in a full-length gown, but on his head was something black. And at the time when I wrote an email and shared it with a person, I thought it was a hood, but later I realized it was a bejeweled crown. So this was the fifth karmapa, and he was given this bejeweled crown by an emperor in the Ming dynasty because he helped him and his wife become enlightened. So he designed this black crown with all these jewels on it that still, I forget, I think it's still done in a ceremony where the Kamarpa is the only one that can touch it, and he holds it on top of his head, because if he doesn't hold it, it will fly off. It has such lightness to it, spirit to it. But the point is, I'm drawn to karmapas. And so in meditation, you can call in, I always call in Jesus, Buddha, enlightened beings, but now I'll name off some of these karmapas because they have a special, I must have a special karmic connection with them, or this would not be showing up. But all I'm trying to express is follow your heart. If you read some Facebook or something that talks about a podcast, if you're so inclined, watch it, and watch it with an open heart and an open mind, that you're receiving more than what you think. Indeed. Okay, let's go back to the main topic of tonight, which is it's all one pot of gold. That's the secret. Now, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but it dawned on me. I never thought about a rainbow. Because what this is talking about is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that everybody's seeking, right? Enlightenment, awakening, so the journey. So how this came up, I was looking at Facebook, and I read Diljo Kimsey's Facebook post, Mingyur Rinpoche, Lama Surya Das. This was a Lama Surya Das one that was talked about the pot of gold, and I want to read it. Finding our genuine selves is not about following the rainbow path until we get to an illusory pot of gold at the end. Practicing Dzogchen, the natural great perfection, we realize that the rainbow is actually a circle, as anybody who has seen a rainbow from a plane can verify. And there's no pot of gold at the end. There is no end. Every step of the way is golden. It's all one big pot of gold. That's the secret. The pot of gold is our natural Buddha nature, our true nature, who and what we truly are. That's why in Dzogchen it's recognized that we're all Buddhas by nature and that all we have to do is recognize the fact. That's the meaning of awakening. That's the insight in insight. That's what Satori breaks through to. That's the introduction to the nature of mind. So as I read that, I thought, the rainbow's a circle. Then it dawned on me, I've never thought about the rainbow. I will see it, it stops at the horizon, but it doesn't stop at the horizon. It goes, the sky doesn't stop at the horizon. It continues in the sky, and it's a circle. The circle that never ends, the circle of purity that Jesus in A Course in Miracles talks about. But anyway, this circle is continuous. The thing that it's completely full, completely whole. So I was contemplating about this rainbow and that the pot of gold, it's all the pot of gold. And I recognized that was true. Every cell, it's gotten down to now, I look at my fingers and go, every cell, every pore. I just look at my hands or my cheek and go, every cell, every pore contains God's pure love, his clear light. Every cell, every pore. It's all the pot of gold. It's all God. And as I forget which night, I think it was Sunday night, I was watching 3 different things on TV at the same time. I was flitting back and forth between a National Football League pro football game between the Chiefs and I think it was the Giants and Boston Red Sox baseball game and a concert that Earth, Wind and Fire was giving. So I would just press a number in on my remote, and go, when one would be on commercial, I'd go to the other one. Or if I wanted to go check on the inning to see how it was going in the baseball game, I'd just flip over. But as I went from thing to thing, I'd look at those images. I look at those baseball players, the football players, those musicians, singers. And I was saying, sometimes out loud, God, God, God. But something changed. They weren't individual gods, because that's something that happens along the awakening process, is that I was identifying and saying hello to the one presence that was God. That's the difference. That's the wholeness of it. It doesn't mean any of the images were separate, but I was acknowledging the one presence. It was wonderful. And, and to have that vision or to see that and to know that that one presence fills every single pore and cell. There's no separation. Okay, so now let's go back to, I've kind of meandered off of this sexual energy thing. So in the beginning, before the pre-separation state of Garden of Eden, the forms were awake and knew of capital A awareness, that voice that would instruct them, the mind, what to do. They were aware of it. They were joined with it. There was no separation between the yin and yang sexual energies and the pure love light non-dual energy. No separation, because the pure non-dual love, when it got inserted in that great ray tube, it created Tues. The downward movement, upward movement made energies vibrating particles. In non-dualism, there's not vibrating particles. No siree. There's just absolute. There's not. I don't even know what it is, because with no subject object, I don't know how you describe it. It's just beingness. I don't know. But the thing is, everything was created out of pure love. But then the sonship instructed this mind. It created, when it inserted pure love down that tube. I described it last week, how you blow a bubble through that little bubble circle. You blow that film through that bubble, you get that big bubble. When the pure love got injected down that great ray tube, out the end came a big blue sphere, the mind. It created mind of time and space. And within that mind, then capital A awareness instructed the mind to use these vibrating particles and glue them together, making images. And to hold the images together, capital A awareness created yin and yang, masculine and feminine energies. And they spiral and they hold. That's why this body doesn't fly off in all these directions. Like sparse particles, just it's being held together by the yin spiral, yin and yang forces. But those yin and yang, they're opposing forces, masculine and feminine, they're sexual energies. So when the sonship wanted to feel what it was like to be in a body, they wanted to feel like what sexual energy was. What did that feel like? Because remember I said when I touched two of my fingers together, there's an aliveness, there's a static aliveness. Well, the sonship wanted more than just that. It wanted a big climax, some big orgasms, some big ecstatic liveliness. But when pure love was merged with yin and yang, it was all moving in unison. It all knew it was integrated and together. But when the Son of God believed he was the creator of the universe and created this body, he fell asleep, was a body. The sexual energies separated and are opposing. In awakening, the sexual energies get rejoined when the heart and mind is getting rejoined as well. And how I can know this is in the last 10 days or so, my sexual energy has changed. I forget what the date was, the 17th, when I felt my sexual energy was neutral. That was the word that came to me. And I looked at my sexual energy and I felt it, and it was neutral. And I made a note later about that. But then the sexual energy, after it was neutral, it became robust, more robust and full than it's ever felt. And I've only recognized just yesterday and today, what's happened is the yin and yang, masculine, feminine energies are rejoining with this pure, enough more obscurations in my unconscious mind have been removed to allow that rejoining of the male female sexual energies with the pure love. Even though yin and yang were created by pure love, when asleep we hold them separate. So they're just rejoined. So it feels more robust. The sexual energy feels more robust. That was on the 17th. So on the 20th, I wrote it in my email, is something very, very unusual happened. Is so my sexual energy would not climax. It continued for like 15 minutes of this robust, full, whole energy is all I can describe. And while it's going on, I'm just like, this sure feels different. Then when the climax happened, and see why I think about people don't talk about this, people get so messed up about sexual energies. There's so much labeling about good and bad sexual energies, sexual addictions, etc. Just lean back, take this for with a grain of salt, is the sexual energies are, when they're not joined, they're opposing forces, male, female, masculine, feminine, yin and yang. You go Google on this, you will see yin and yang want to join, will ultimately join from being separate. But anyway, what I want to share is this climax was robust and lasted longer than it's ever lasted. But then something unusual happened. So I'm just lying there in bed, and at least an hour, because I check my clock. I take notes. This stuff is pretty important to me. What happened was the yin and yang energies with the great ray, there was a spiral, this spiraling going on. From the top of my head, it's normal for this to happen with me. But now since then, the 20th, it's spiraling very forcibly from the top of my head to, I forget if this just went to the pelvis and back up. I kind of forget, folks. Oh, it might have been that way, where it spirals and then it's spiraling up and down together. It's like a synergy goes together. This went on for an hour. I am not kidding you. And I knew I was not to get up. That was I knew it. I was not to get up and break this, that the enlightened beings from that pure land that I described to you, those chanting enlightened beings, in Buddhism, they call that the pure land, the Buddha field. The enlightened beings, they're chanting 24/7. They're chanting, to help bring all the six realms back home. But I got the feeling the enlightened beings were using this energy, rejoin yin and yang and great ray, to help heal the six realms. Because picture, this would be called, for me, it came to me, it's kind of like virginal. Once awakened, this new yin and yang rejoined with pure love, no separation, because that's what I'm experiencing, fullness, no separation. That energy, they could use me as a vessel, a monastery, a temple, a jar, a vase, that this energy is just radiating out. They can use that to help all the beings. And it came to me while that was going on. So then I started silently chanting, Om Mani Padme Hum. That one mantra, as I've explained to you, is, I think, one of the reasons my awakening has quickened through this 6-year deal. But I only learned started chanting the Om Mani Padme Hum maybe in the last couple of years, and only in the last real 6 months do I chant it with zeal and genuine care to want to help all six realms, the God, demigods, humans, animals, hungry ghosts and denizens in hell, remove their secret inner, outer, and secret obscurations so they don't feel separate from source. So I started chanting Om Mani Padme Hum. And it came to me I remembered in one of those Loma Dallas posts, Om Mani Padme Hum has got three names. And I didn't even know it really had two names till within the last month or so. But the one is the mantra of compassion, because the whole Course in Miracles and Tibetan Buddhism, they're trying to get us to have empathy and compassion for our brothers and want to help our brothers wake up from the dream of separation, but not in a missionary way, but in that we hold our mind, focus our mind on the clear light, the pure love, and see that pure light and love pulsating out of your heart to go out to all these realms. And I know all this is an illusion, but those beings that are asleep in those six realms, all these humans out here, most of them don't know this is an illusion. They believe all this is real. So they got to wake up from this illusion. We can't, so that's why it's called recognizing your Buddha nature, recognizing that's always been there, called Christ nature, God nature, this pure, clear light essence, which is a merging of the three kayas, it's called the merging of awareness with stillness, which is that purity, and movement. Movement are all these forms that are coming and going, that are animated by the pure light. But those three kayas merge for this fullness and wholeness, where you're not holding your body separate from the clear light anymore. Your skin is relaxed, let go, it's breathing, it's expanding in and out, vibrating with this. You can visualize all this because this is how it is, pulsating in and out, not just your skin, but from your head, not just your heart. Your heart starts to pulsate all by itself, in and out. God love in, God love out, love in, love out. But it was today, I think, or could have been yesterday morning, I forget. My pulsating heart was going all by itself, in and out, pulsating in and out through like I call up country names. But all of a sudden, the pulsating changed to be my whole body. Now, wait a minute. It might have went to my head, where my head was pulsating. Oh yeah, I made a God eyeball. This whole thing's just pulsating in. Your breath is God love in. Your out breath is God love out. God love in, God love out. That's how your breath is and your heartbeat is. But anyway, but then it moved to where my whole body was like this pulsating star of love that just pulsating, expanding and contracting, in and out. That's the embodiment of the clear light of pure love. Pure love shows as clear light, vibrating clear light in this dual realm. Oh, so I was chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, silently, and I could sense that spiraling energy was going to stop, and it did. It stopped. So I'm laying there in bed, and then all of a sudden, my whole body, head to toes, started shaking up and down. And it throughout my whole awakening, that's happened because I realized this this light and love, pure love that the enlightened beings were using, it not only helped the six realms, it was also helping my unconscious mind and body and heart let go of more obscurations of judgments of that I'm separate from my brothers, separate from God, separate from my true identity of this clear light, pure love essence that we all are. And it's like, okay, that went on about a minute and then it stops. So, see, but I'm just sharing this to share this. Your reality is this pure love, is pure, unconditional love that's showing up as clear light, but shows up in your body as a beating heart and a breath. Because when the great ray, when the sun chip injected some pure love, just pure love, spacious, pure love into that great ray tube, the downward pressure pushed on your heart and pushed on your lungs to cause them to start to beat or to breathe. And then when the pressure came off, then and then the beat, it causes the two beats, the in and the out. The breath, your heartbeat, and the great ray in and out light movement are in synchrony. But the cause of your creation is pure love. The sonship wanted to feel what pure love felt like in a body, because in the absolute it felt stark, is my word, or sterile. Didn't feel, they couldn't feel it. They needed Tues. So they created Tues just to enjoy pure love. And then, dang, we fell asleep and we believe in Tues. It's that simple. Sonship created the dualistic mind to process the sense data and to analyze and make good, bad, and all the variations in between, happy, sad, and all the variations in between, because it was simply experiencing being inside a body. But as you awaken, you become mindful of your thoughts, these sensations coming, what you're hearing, seeing, tasting, and you'll recognize when you've gone off with an attraction or an aversion. You let go, come back to just beingness, letting thoughts, feelings, and sensations come and go. Now, we're not doormats. That doesn't mean we're here for physical or psychological abuse. We set our boundaries, but yet underneath, we're how we think of our brothers and ourselves is all important, and what comes to mind is something to share. One of the individuals that listens to these YouTube videos later and gets my emailed me asking for prayers because they felt these energies from their enemies. That's what was said. They felt something from their enemies. And I sat with that for a minute, and then I replied back, I recommend that the person journal the names of the persons who they think are their enemies or events or whatever, list them, and then say as many times as they can a day or each day, I love you. You are spirit, whole, pure, and innocent, all is forgiven and released. I love you. And to keep doing that until the person felt like they were no longer their enemy. It can take a while. I can swear by that, because I've had some politicians that I practiced on for years. Finally, it's come around. I don't feel like they're enemies. Or some neighbors or whatever. what, whatever. And the delightful thing about all this is the honesty each person needs to have, where we're not denying and repressing, that we honestly feel like we've got some enemies or things we hate. I remember that time Lama Surya Das, it happened 2 or 3 times back when I was attending Zoom retreats, when I had him out as a guru, which I don't have any longer because my own internal guru awakened. But he'd say, can you love the things you hate? About the 3rd time I heard that, I got irritated, and I realized, oh my goodness, I'm irritated. There must be something real about this. I need to check this out. So I asked Holy Spirit, show me the things I hate. I'll be damned if he didn't give me a list. Now, do you want to be honest with yourself or keep hiding and covering this stuff, right? This woman was honest enough to email me and ask me something like this. I mean, bless her heart. I love it. Way to go. Send me emails. It's all private. I don't share names at all. But what'll happen, this helps others. Because it's normal. It's normal. We had a dualistic mind that labels things good and bad. So in a knee-jerk reaction, we label friend or foe. because that animal, that comes up. The animalistic sexual energies, yin and yang, those are animalistic sexual energies. They're also fight or flight, reptilian energies, which are the joining with pure love, the joining where they're no longer opposing, no longer are running the show. That's why I could feel my sexual energy be neutral. But the yin and yang had the opposing forces. It was now neutral. They were not opposing each other. And I sat with that and realized because they're not opposing each other, causing, winds within the body and mind, probably is coming about because my thoughts are no longer opposing themselves. My emotions are no longer opposing themselves. I'm aware when I'm having attraction, attachment, attraction, or aversion, and I let go. So therefore, my mind, it's like a jar that you put glitter in and with water and you shake it and you watch the glitter just all disperse all around in the water. Well, that's how the mind, dualistic mind, it's a muck with opposing thoughts, feelings, sensations running around up there. But as you learn to meditate daily and let thoughts come and go, the mind starts to settle. With enough settling and enough letting go, letting come and go, and identifying the things that really trigger you, making that journal and that list and practicing on those things, you're letting go. And things that you might let go one item, it's not one for one. I bet it's one for 100,000, or it could be one for 1,000,000. Because picture how many people out there in the human race of 8 billion are practicing a forgiveness work that the Course in Miracles talks about. Look beyond the body to the clear light of spirit that's there, or Trechet in Dzogchen, seeing through, being through these forms to the clear light of Rigpa that's there. Who in the heck is studying things like this? Well, you all are. I mean, it's fantastic. But what that's doing, that is all this muck is settling out of your mind, and it's removed. It's dissolved. I really don't know. It's no longer rigid judgments of separate thoughts. There, that guy out there is separate from me. I'm separate. That's separate. The little rigid boundaries get dissolved. So then there's the pure, clear light in your mind. More and more times you're seeing the clear light. You see it once in a while, then you see it more often, more often. It builds on itself. But the thing is, that's why I realize my sexual energies have changed. And therefore, it's allowing for this fullness that it's all one pot of gold, to being more and more recognized, that I'm walking within fullness as fullness, not separate from God's presence. Nothing, no one, not one thing is separate from God's presence. Only with a thought can it be that it's separate, causes it to be separate. So before I stop the recording, if there's any comments or questions that are quick, I will take them. It's 8:07. Thank you for being here, for sure. I much appreciate it. I'm still assimilating all this. I realize a final thing is what's happening is, from the view of nothing more to do comes the meditation of non-meditation and of getting used to that. That means that non-meditation, that's life as it is. As you walk around, you're mindful, aware, and alert of what you're doing while you're doing it. No longer sleepwalking through life. Mindless, it's called. Where, but you're more mindful when your mind goes off to the future or the past and you bring it back to the now. Mindful of what you're doing while you're doing it. And therefore, in that mindfulness comes this calmness, this stillness, where you can hear instructions from capital A awareness, or called Holy Spirit, whatever you know, higher Buddha nature, higher cross Christ nature. But it's the capital A awareness, or I tend to be calling it now. Okay, no thoughts or comments. So we'll look at the tiles of all that are here and recognize them for what they are. They're pure Buddha nature, pure Christ nature, God nature, Christ Buddha God Ed, Christ Buddha God Liz, Christ Buddha God Lynn, Christ Buddha God Leon, Christ Buddha God Terry. Let's see, Christ Buddha God D, Christ Buddha God Angela, who's off on her trip. She's down in England, left Italy. Christ Buddha God Julia, Christ Buddha God Joan, Christ Buddha God Joanne, Christ Buddha God Jerry, Christ Buddha God Susan A, Christ Buddha God Gabby, Christ Buddha God Chaz, Christ Buddha God Kareem, Sally, Danelle Alvaro, Gonzalo, Michelle, Barbie, all those that listen to the video later, and all sentient beings. Om Mani Padme Hum. May all beings have their inner, outer, and secret obstacles be removed to recognize and remember their Buddha, Christ, God nature. Amen. I am going to stop the recording without leaving the meeting.